It's hard to say things about Tom Brady that hasn't already been said about him. I mean, the guy's 42 at this point. We all know what he can do. He's been in the league for so long at this point. And so when I was making my top 40 quarterback rankings list, honestly, he's the guy who I've shuffled around the most in the process of making this list. I've had him pretty much everywhere on the list at a certain point. I mean, it was kind of really tough for him to place because keep in mind, this is the top 40 quarterbacks right now, not necessarily a top 40 quarterbacks of all time. There's no doubt about it that the two guys I have ahead of him, Brady would easily be ahead of them if it was taking career accomplishments into account. But as of right now, I mean, I gotta put him at number 3. That's where I'm gonna put him on this list. Because keep in mind, this is a list for who would I rather have going into the 2019 season, and there are some concerns to have about Brady, basically just in terms of his age, nothing else really. However, number 3 is not a bad thing by any means in my opinion. I mean, sure, maybe some guys would have him at number 1, and I understand why you would have him there, but for me, I think 3 is actually still a pretty big accomplishment considering the fact that he is 42. Not to mention, statistically, he didn't have the best season last year. While his actual bulk stats are pretty high up, I mean, 4,355 yards, 29 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, that's certainly not bad, and a 65.8 completion percentage. So, these kind of typical stats actually aren't too bad, but one of the real reasons for that was he simply just threw the ball a lot. Yes, he had solid numbers, but he also threw the ball 570 times, meaning that he was actually 14th in yards per attempt. And not to mention, in my own personal advanced stat that I created, points gained per snap, he actually only had 0.3746 points gained per snap, which was 27th in the NFL. Behind guys like Josh Allen, Nick Mullins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Cam Newton, Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, that's definitely on the low end. There's no getting around it. And part of the reason for that was because he had just a couple of bad interceptions, and that will hurt you in my stat. And so statistics-wise, I mean, you could look at those and say, hey, don't even have him inside the top 10 then. And I think some people would say if he wasn't Tom Brady, if this guy was Joe Smith and he was playing for his first season with the Patriots, but played exactly the same way Brady did, he would not be in the top 3. And you know what? There might be some truth to that, actually, I'll be honest. But I don't think that's totally fair to say either. I mean, one of the key ways Brady is so successful is just he's been in the league for so long, and he really is a general out there the way he's calling plays. Every single play, he just does so much. Like, take a look at this play. First, it's going to start off with him just calling somebody and saying, hey, go in motion to the right side of the screen. So nothing really too fancy here. But then right when his receiver does run over to the middle of the screen, he's going to say, hey, go away. Go back to the left side of the screen. I don't want you here anymore. So doing that has already helped him out. He knows it's going to be zone coverage. That's what that has already done because no one followed his receiver. Okay, zone coverage. Well, that might have actually been part of a play. This actually definitely isn't. If you see what Brady's going to do now, he's going to go over and tell Edelman to go in motion. You even see Edelman. He's kind of pointing to himself and saying, me? You're talking to me right now? Because, this isn't part of the play. Brady is just telling him right now to go in motion. And the purpose of him doing that is actually going to be because of those two bears right there. One is going to just have to follow Edelman out to the outside just in case it is going to be a passing play. So, as you see, they're getting a lot more spread out because, again, it's still zone, so you're not just going to completely follow him the way you would do in man. But you also do have to make sure that you're now in better positioning in case it is going to be a passing play to make sure that you can, knock the ball away. And the other Bears player just going to simply move over to the right side of the screen a little bit more as well because, positioning is everything if you are a safety, and so that's what you have to do. I mean, if you see right now, number 39 definitely has stepped a little bit farther back and a little bit over to the right side of the screen. And Brady sees all of this, and so what he's doing is he's shouting out to the right side of the screen, hey, watch 39 right there. He's pointing to number 39, and he's saying, hey, watch out for him. So because of that, number 39 is actually going to take a step over to the right side of the screen a little bit because he's saying, okay, they're watching out for me, they're making sure they're going to block me, so maybe I should get over to the right side of the screen. This could be a screen pass, and I'll have to make sure I can run over and, get into this play. If I do stay where I'm at right now, their left tackle, Trent Brown, could easily run over and sort of block me, and then if it's a screen pass, they could pick up a ton of yards. I could be the guy who has to make a tackle here. And so then what Brady is going to do is fake a screen pass, and look at how far over number 39 went. And not just that, but even the other Chicago player had to creep over to the right side of the screen as well, because again, if it is going to be a passing play and not a screen pass, but actually something deep, well, they have to make sure that they're not just going to give up whatever is deep. So doing those things in isolation doesn't seem like a lot, but now look at who is over on the left side of the screen. It's nobody. It's all one-on-one matchups for New England. Brady was basically just able to outsmart that Chicago Bears defense to get them all out of position, and then he was able to hand it off to his halfback and let his halfback do the rest of the work and run for a big gain. I mean, that right there is the value of having a veteran quarterback, and not just a veteran quarterback, but a quarterback who was incredibly intelligent and a veteran in Tom Brady. I mean, I know Patriots fans won't like this comparison that much, and it's not really so much of a comparison, but in Peyton Manning's last season, we saw that even though his talent wasn't there anymore, even though he couldn't really throw the ball that well anymore, he was still able to add so much value just being there on the field and being able to call certain plays. Like, if that play is just ran normally, there easily could have been a Bear who runs over and get into the play. But with Brady being able to be smart and get guys out of position, that's what led to a big run. Of course, New England's players still do have to execute, they have to make their blocks, their running back has to run well, but it was also just Brady putting them in a position to succeed. But honestly, the reason why I say it's not really a comparison between Peyton Manning's last season and Brady's season going into 2019 is the fact that Brady can still play. Not to mention, the history of sports in general will really tell you that when you are old and when you do start to fall apart, it's not a slow and gradual decline. You do fall off a cliff. Max Kellerman is right about that part. Now, he's wrong about the fact that Tom Brady would have definitely fallen off a cliff at a certain point because some players just play longer. But in terms of athletic ability, yeah, players are going to fall off a cliff. At a certain point, Brady will have a terrible season if he plays as long as he can. But that doesn't mean that the terrible season is going to be next season just because he is 42. Like, one thing you'll see on display is Edelman's going to be in motion since no one follows him. Okay, it's zone coverage. Brady's aware of what the play is now. It's also going to be a cover 3 zone, and Brady knows that as well because there's only one safety deep, so you wouldn't just have one safety deep in a cover 2 zone, especially with how many Chicago Bears are, within 10 yards of the play. It's literally all of them except for the one safety. So it could be a really clever disguise and it'd be a cover 2 or something, but that seems unlikely. Almost definitely this is going to be a cover 3 zone. And since they have Josh Gordon running that route right there, Brady's going to say, hey, that's a decent route to beat this type of coverage. I mean, it basically turns into one-on-one coverage, and with Josh Gordon running a go route and a Chicago Bear pressing on him, I mean, Brady definitely likes those chances. I know it's kind of blurry when I paused it, but Josh Gordon is actually behind the Chicago Bear who's in charge of covering him. However, the key is that Bear has to turn his shoulders to make sure that he's keeping up with Gordon because Gordon is pretty fast. So Brady knows that if he throws basically a jump ball, there's actually a very good chance Gordon's the one that comes down with it. This isn't a 50-50 ball. This is like a 95-5 ball with the 2 5s being interception or incompletion. Brady's going to take a chance, and he also makes a great throw. Gordon makes a great catch and even hangs on to the ball after getting, clobbered to the ground like that. But it was a tremendous throw. It really was, and that's what led to a big gain. Brady can still make throws. I mean, that has to be mentioned. Brady is still an athlete. He might not be an athlete in the Patrick Mahomes sense, but as long as you can make your throws and you can move around in the pocket enough to not have too much pressure happen, which he absolutely can, then, I mean, that's all I care about. This plays another example. It's going to be a cover 2 zone. However, since the Patriots have an empty backfield, this now means that Chicago is going to have an extra man drop back into coverage. So there's only going to be a 3-man rush, and there will be 6 people in charge of covering that middle of the field. And so for the Patriots, they have a receiver running a simple curl route right over there at around the 30-yard line. So it typically would be something you'd want to look to throw to. But again, with an extra man in coverage, the windows are going to be a lot tighter right now. So as you see, Brady does have a receiver open, but there also are 2 Bears who are kind of in the area. I mean, his receiver is open. He's trying to make this throw, but again, he can't afford to miss this throw. And not just that, but he had to time it perfectly. Although if you look at him right now, the ball, he's already in his throwing motion, so he's definitely timing this one well. Comes down to the throw, and the throw was absolutely perfect, where he's able to hit his receiver, and the receiver was still able to get relatively far down and, protect himself. Edelman has to not get hurt, and Brady was able to sort of help him out there a little bit by giving the ball to Edelman pretty quickly. And some people are saying some things that just make no sense to me. I hear some, well, I don't know how good his deep ball is at 42 years old. And it's like, who cares how good Tom Brady's deep ball is? I mean, Tom Brady will throw a deep ball from time to time, but if we're going to act like that's a big part of his game, we're just being silly. I mean, this is a guy who's definitely always thrived in short to medium range throws. Usually he'll only throw a deep ball when you're trying to sell out to stop a shorter medium range throw. I mean, this guy isn't the type of guy who throws a lot of 50-yard bombs. The occasional one, sure, so it would hurt him if his deep ball isn't as good, but the fact that it would be this huge difference for Brady is really kind of silly. Like, a lot more plays are plays like this, where it's going to be a wide receiver screen, so what the Patriots are going to do is have their number 2 and 3 receiver on the bottom half of the screen, just run out and try to block those 2 defenders right there. And then the number 1 receiver runs up to the middle of the screen, Brady hits him in stride, and then he tries to pick up as many yards as possible. That's the way this play on paper is supposed to work. And also, you might notice that this is actually in that postseason game against the Chargers. I'm going to start talking some postseason because, I mean, come on, he's so great in the postseason. We all know it. But watch his throw here. I mean, that's exactly what you would want someone to do. It's perfectly accurate. He hits him at the perfect time. It's a good speed, so it gets to the receiver quickly. I mean, everything you want about that play is perfect. And the reality is, as long as this guy can continue to make those types of throws, New England will find a way to make him still effective so they can keep him on the field and use him for his intelligence. That's all you have to do, really, for Brady. I actually don't think it's out of the question that Brady does play till 45. I know people laughed at him when he said it, but really, I do think that there is a chance that he does that. I mean, for one thing, you do see pitchers be able to play that long, and with the new NFL where you kind of can't really hit the quarterback as much, you can stay healthier a lot longer. Not to mention, Brady always has been so very good at protecting himself and avoiding hits. When he sees he's going to get sacked, he goes down instead of tries to fight out of it. But plus, I just think that all he has to do is fit the system. I mean, he's not a system quarterback by any means, but there is a reason why some idiots call him a system quarterback, and it's because he fits the New England system so well. You know, a lot of short passes, a lot of play action, a lot of these types of things. And of course, the New England system changed it around a lot, but you know what I'm trying to say. One other play from the Chargers was this one, where it's going to be a cover 3 zone, and what New England is going to do is first have a receiver run right there, which, you know, could help clear up that zone in the middle of the screen, because they also have a receiver who's going to be running to the middle of the screen, and basically they just want to make a throw over the middle. Brady's actual first read is going to be up to the top half of the screen, but he doesn't like what he sees, so he's going to then look back over to the route I just showed you, and his receiver is going to be relatively open. But there is a Los Angeles Chargers safety who is deep and is looking to try to break in and maybe make a play on this ball. But Brady makes an absolutely perfect throw, his receiver makes the catch, and able to pick up yet another big gain. And really, that entire Chargers game, it was just so fascinating to watch the Patriots just completely dismantle that Los Angeles Chargers defense. I mean, honestly, that entire postseason run was just so fascinating to see that they really did just outcoach every team they went up against. And again, that's not a slight on Brady. I mean, Brady, in my opinion, might as well just be part of the coaching staff at this point. I mean, clearly he has a big role in whatever they do. Him and Josh McDaniels always do such a good job on the offense, and of course, we all know what Bill Belichick can do. He's probably the greatest coach of all time, easily the greatest general manager of all time. But again, one thing that matters so much about Brady is he does all the little things so well. Like on this one, we'll move over to the AFC Championship, where he really just was on fire, especially late in that game, of just being so consistently good. I know he threw a couple of interceptions, and it would have been 3 if D Ford didn't line up off sides, but as a whole, he really was so fantastic in that game, I thought. Yes, he made his mistakes, but he showed up when it mattered most as well. But he really does the little things well. Like on this play, one thing you'll see is that the Patriots do have a man in motion right now, and since there is a cheat following him, it gives Brady a pretty good idea, okay, it's probably man coverage here. And since he has a route right there, this is actually a great route against man coverage. However, it's also not the best route against a cover 1 hole, which is what the play actually is. Just simply because there will be a Chiefs linebacker in the area, this now means that Brady will have to wait until his receiver, who is Rob Gronkowski, does get open. I mean, if you see, as of right now, you know, if this was a cover 1 blitz, for example, and the linebacker wasn't in the area, Gronkowski would be easily open. But there are 2 Chiefs in the area because, you know, cover 1 hole, so he has to wait for Gronkowski to get open, but also Gronkowski will hopefully have to still be open by the time that he gets past that linebacker. But he is open, Brady makes a perfect throw at a perfect time, and they're able to pick up another first down. Timing is really everything in a quarterback, and there's no doubt about it, Brady is just all-time great when it comes to timing. I mean, he's all-time great, period, but again, you know what I'm trying to say. Now, one relatively interesting thing about Brady is he did kind of just make some boneheaded mistakes last year. He made some mistakes that he would almost never make. I mean, he threw 11 interceptions last year, which was the first time he had double-digit interceptions in the past 5 seasons. And it wasn't just the act of throwing interceptions, because, you know, everyone throws an interception. Sometimes the ball just slightly misses, sometimes there's a bad tip, all of those things happen. But he also just made some uncharacteristically bad plays, I thought. Like on this one, in the AFC Championship game, it's going to be a play action to the bottom half of the screen, and then they'll have Gronkowski run over the middle, and hopefully he'll get open. And as you see, Gronkowski is winning his own one-on-one matchup pretty decently well, but there is also another Chief in this area who's dropped back into coverage. However, Brady just doesn't see him. He tries to hit Gronkowski anyways, and it ends up getting intercepted. Just not a great play by Brady. It is kind of tough. I mean, I'll show a different angle that might be a little bit easier for you to see how, you know, the linebacker really was just behind some other defensive linemen, so it is kind of hard to see him. Sometimes you just lose track of a guy. It does happen, so, you know, again, I can't blame him too much for this one. However, I kind of can, because we're talking top 3 quarterbacks. You know, we can talk about the GOAT all we want, but he made some mistakes last year. We can't leave that out of the conversation. So did I hold that against him too much in ranking him on this list? Well, not really, no. I mean, he made a few mistakes like this. This was far from the only one. He had a few bad interceptions. I remember there was one against Pittsburgh, which was also just not a great interception. Not to say that there's good interceptions, but, you know, there are some where it was a good decision and you just missed the throw a little bit and it ends up working out in the worst possible way. But there are some that are mental mistakes, and those are the ones that Brady had, which is weird. I don't know if it's just in his old age, he's getting a little bit confident in his abilities or whatnot, but I mean, he did make some mistakes, it has to be mentioned. So that's why I have him actually in the top 3, despite the fact that he is is 42, because I think the reason that he wasn't so successful last year as he was in seasons past wasn't really physical, it was actually weirdly mental. And considering the fact that he's been such a smart player for so long, I'm going to chalk it up to it's just a sample size thing. 16 games is a small sample size, and if you make 3 bad mistakes, it does kind of up your typical bad mistakes of a year. You know, let's just say Brady always would make 3 of those mistakes in a year, but just last year he happened to make 6. Well, sometimes that's just a sample size. If he does it again in 2019, well then maybe it's time to start worrying, but in terms of just making a few extra bad mistakes in one season, I'm not going to hold it against him too much. So that's where I have Brady. You know, I'd like to know what you guys think. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to say he should be number 1, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be saying way too high. He's too old. He should not be this high on the list. But either way, I'm just going to give my opinion. That's what I always do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching.